Well, moving on to other matters now. Well, lately, there's been a lot of call, especially as the economic fortunes of the country dwindles. Well, several sectors of the economy have come into focus. One of such is the solid mineral sector. Well, to give us more perspective on this matter, we're now being joined by Professor Gbenga Okunlola, a geologist from the University of Ibadan. Thank you for coming on today on the news. Could you tell us then, since there's been focusing on that sector, wanting to see how we could improve our capacity and generate more, where would you consider as the starting point?
Thank you, Chamberlain. I think the first of all, it's important that we commend the government this time around, that they're now focusing on this sector, which had been neglected for a long time. But the first thing that they need to do is to strengthen the public institutions that can form the fabric for the takeoff of this sector. And what do I mean? The MDAs, because they are the ones that will implement the policy. I would like to say the laws are there, and the laws are okay. The roadmap is there, the policy is okay, but the institutions are still very weak. They need to be strengthened. They need to be focused, they need to be funded in a focused manner. It's not just providing funds, because you provide funds, you can fritter away. They need to look at the specific institutions like the Nigerian Geological Survey, the Steel Raw Materials Exploration Agencies, and all the other sectors within the ministry that is supposed to generate the data, that is supposed to monitor, and I'm talking about also the Mines Inspectorate Division, to monitor, to organize the sector, the Mines Cadastral Office. If these sectors or these MDAs within the public sector of the solid minerals unit or solid mineral sector is taken care of, then we'll be ready to take off. Then the next thing is to sensitize the private sector. Because as it is now, I like to say the private sector does not yet fully understand the sector, and also the financial institutions. So there has to be an integration of a strong public sector, an informed private sector, and also a willing financial institution that understands the sector. Right now, I will say we are at zero level, and it's important that we take off rightly.
I've heard people talk about the laws. They say that, for instance, states, private sector should be able to mine or go into that sector, and then maybe when they generate, before it then goes to the sector. But you say the laws are okay. Does it mean that they seem to be missing the point?
Well, I think there are aspects of not so clear understanding on the sides of people. It took to draft what I will call the mining laws that are that's operating now. That's the 2007 laws. It took quite some time. And there were quite a lot of studies and comparison what's happening globally. And I think the law is okay. You can't just be tinkering with the law. If you tinker with the law again, then you send wrong signals in the investing community. The laws are okay now. You can have good laws, but if you have weak institutions, the law will just be there and nothing will be done. It's a private sector driven law. If you look at it, it gives a lot of room for the private sector, because actually government has no business in mining globally now. It's a private sector, but the government institution that need to provide the data, that needs to provide an organized base for the takeoff, needs to be strengthened. So the private sector themselves will drive it. But if the public sector that's supposed to provide the foundation is weak, the data base currently, I will say, well, we have some data, but it's not enough for it to attract serious investment for private sector. So it's going to be private sector driven. I've also seen people or had people argue about removing the solid minerals from the exclusive list and all that. And I say, no, you don't need to do that. The state governments have all it takes for them even to own this sector, because there is a provision in the law that allows that you form companies. The state governments are expected to form, they have investment companies. I'll take the case of some of the state government that have formed companies and have entered into joint ventures and have the choicest lands or the choicest places where you have some of these deposits. Because when you now throw it open that every state can control the mineral resource, especially a sector that is just taking up, you're going to have a lot of confusion. You're not going to have it properly organized. So let's still leave it at the exclusive list. The state government can be creative about this. Of course, they have all they have control over the local government. They have control over the local institutions, the traditional rulers that are giving consents. And so they can also get, licenses. Not only get licenses, they even have a kind of an edge in getting joint ventures with global concerns that can run with this. The state governments, as it is, as public institutions, should not be involved in the mining. They should encourage the private sector within their jurisdiction to take it on, and they can act as a kind of major support. So let's leave the law as it is. Let the state government run with it. Let them have a proper understanding. Let them have good ideas. Let them be well guided, and they will enjoy it more rather than just wanting to control it. That's my opinion, and I think that's the opinion of most professionals in this industry. It's a knowledge-driven industry.
Right. If we're putting in place a template,
yeah,
would you recommend we just develop ours as it suits us indigenously, or we look at somewhere, many country that is succeeding, and tailor to our needs?
Well, mining is a global thing. It's global and it's local. But it depends on how you look at your own local situation. Of course, if you look at, take a trip to the mining cadastral office, you will discover that thousands of licenses have been given out for local people. But they can attract foreign investors. They can attract technical expertise, both locally and also internationally. But the point is, no serious investor will come and invest in a situation where they don't really fully have the data. They don't fully have the understanding. They don't fully have the basic data that they can run with, that they can say, look, if I have this, I can invest in this, and I'm going to have a return on my investment that will encourage me to continue. So the database has to be improved, and not only that, the capacity, the local capacity itself have to be harnessed. And this is where I want to recommend to the federal government. The capacity currently in the public sector to drive this solid mineral sector is still very weak. I mean, I don't know how many number of geologists we have in the employment of federal sector, maybe federal government. They are less than 200, or maybe maximum of 300. For a nation of now around 80,000 square kilometers, with over 50 types of mineral deposits in over 2,000 locations, and you need to map on a scale of 1 to 50,000 where the investor needs to run with this data, it's absolutely inadequate. The capacity is there. We have thousands of geoscientists all around the country that could be pulled, and then we can have a rapid generation of data, and Prof, then the private sector can run with it.
A quick one here before we wrap up. Give us an idea.
Yeah.
What kind of industry are we looking at in terms of figures? What can it generate?
We're looking at a multi-trillion naira industry. And I'd just like to say this as a parting shot. If the public institutions are funded now, and this sector is well focused, well taken care of, the private sector gets involved, the financial institutions get the understanding, the public sector is strengthened. In the next 4 or 5 years, the Ministry of Solid Minerals will not need to go to the government for any budget allocation. They will be stronger than NNPC.
All right, thank you very much
for
talking to us. Professor Okunlola, a geologist from University of Ibadan.